over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's right here, it looks to me at least like the elephant's doing that.
Yeah.
You couldn't even talk a 4-year-old into doing that. So, you know what I'm saying? Like you ever see a
Yeah.
4-year-old do
like
an elephant? You have to ask him what the fuck it is. Like, what is that? Like, that's an elephant. You're like, whoa, that elephant's crazy. What is it doing?
Do you think it knows it's drawing an elephant, or it's
That's a good question.
like does it draw on a tree?
It probably doesn't know it's drawing an elephant. If I had to guess, I would have guessed that it probably doesn't understand 2D space like that, because if it did, it would start creating art. They would start expressing themselves to each other. They would start drawing directions, like go this way. If you start seeing animals do that, that is so far beyond using tools.
That's what bees do.
Yeah, well,
right?
bees do it with smells, right?
And, well, they do it with a
Pheromones
dance.
Yeah, they little
so they
wiggle
can
dance.
they give instructions on where the flowers are. Yeah. So this question of intelligence is really interesting, and I think very important, because you know, we talk about intelligence as if we know what it is, but we don't. It expresses itself in so many different ways.
Right.
There's so many manifestations. So this big controversy that's happening now among, you know, between, I don't know if you're aware of this, with Sam Harris and Ezra Klein, and Andrew Sullivan, and people are
And Charles Murray.
Charles Murray, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. That whole thing about
Want to explain
racial.
to people that don't know what the hell it is?
Charles Murray wrote this book called The Bell Curve, I don't know, 20 years ago or
I
something.
think it was 25 even.
Yeah, where he argued that there are racial differences in intelligence, IQ specifically, with Asians being the highest, and then whites and then blacks, and that's just the way it is, and social adjustments aren't going to change that because it's largely genetic.
Right.
And, you know, that's, as I understand, that was the argument. I haven't
I
read
don't
his
think
book.
it's saying largely genetic, but I think they're saying that genetics play a factor and environment plays a factor. I think some people are not willing to look at genetics if it shows an unfavorable trait in minorities. They don't want to look at it. They deny
that's
it.
true. But I think it's also true that part of the argument is that social programs are a waste of money because they're not going to affect it because it's genetic.
That's crazy.
I'm
If that
pretty
is
sure
part of the
that's-
argument, that's just straight racist to me.
Well, I think that's what people are.
The idea, like, save your
grabbing
money,
onto.
save your money. No,
Right.
do a better job. Like, you don't even know
Yeah.
if it works, because
Right.
what have you done? Like, what?
Well,
you go to an
yeah.
inner city school
Right.
and pretend you're a 10-year-old kid trying to get by in this life, and
Yeah.
you're literally
Yeah.
seeing gang members and craziness and people flashing cash and people dropping out because they're pregnant when they're 13th. And you're trying to tell me there's not some sort of a massive
Right.
environmental factor. If you were a white kid
Yeah.
going to a school like that, I only went to a bad school for 1 year of my life. I'm no OG, but I really did go to one bad school, Mary Curley Middle School in Jamaica Plain. And in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts, now it's become gentrified, sort of. It's kind of like East LA or Silver Lake area. You know, like a lot of hipsters have moved in and nice places. But when I lived there, it was not good.
Yeah.
It was very poor people, and the fucking middle school was scary. 17-year-old kids in my 7th grade class. No one. It was just a weird place. Maybe, I guess it was 8th grade. But the point was, these kids were never going to graduate. They knew it, and they were trying to go back to 7th grade again, or 8th grade, whatever the fuck it was. And the teacher would have them in the class for a couple days, and then they would leave. Everywhere you walked, you were scared. Everywhere you walked, like, some weird shit was happening with people. People were yelling at people. There was always, like, tension. And there was always, like, bigger kids around that were robbing other kids. Like, fuck. Like, I got through that year going, holy shit. And when I got out of there, my parents moved to a really nice part of town, Newton. If you're a kid growing up in that environment, good fucking luck learning anything. Good fucking
and
luck
probably
having...
it's pretty bad at home too.
Yeah, and what I experienced in Jamaica Plain was nothing compared to Dorchester and Roxbury. Those are the bad areas. They were way worse.
And I know that anxiety, stress stops brain development.
Yes.
It retards
Yes.
it.
It also makes you much more inclined to violence.
Yeah.
You know, like
Sure.
when you grow up even in the womb, if your mother's around horrible situations and people screaming and fighting, and that cortisol and all those adrenaline and all those hormones are flowing through that baby, preparing that baby for a violent world.
Well, and I'm sure you know about the epigenetics that show that can pass several generations.
Yes,
Your grandfather was in a famine, you're more likely to be obese.
Isn't that crazy?
It's nuts. Yeah.
You
yeah.
also live longer though. Isn't that weird? Like the people that were in famine people, their kids lived longer for some strange reason.
Interesting.
Yeah, like your body's preparing you to be extra durable, like we were talking about before the podcast started.
Right. And fasting is the only intervention that's ever been shown to extend lifespan.
Not nuts.
Yeah.
I do it because it makes me just function better. I do it every 16 hours. I eat. So I'll eat and then I don't eat for 16 hours. So I'll eat for 8 hours a day. That's it. When that's over, that's over.
So
I'll eat again
so
for
what
16
is it?
hours.
Like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or
Whatever
something?
it is. I just figure out what the time is and then add 16 to it. If I'm cheating, I add 14. But I never add less than 14.
I see. Yeah. I was talking to a guy recently about this, Brian Freisinger in Austin. Really smart guy. And we were talking about this, and he's like, I only eat when the sun's up.
Ooh.
It's easy to keep track of.
That's good.
Yeah.
But what if you want to go to a nice dinner?
Don't eat.
Bow!
Or go earlier. I know.
You gotta have cheat days.
When he said it, I was like, dude, I
Yeah.
spend most of my life in Spain where dinner time is 10 p.m. Like, that's not going to work for me.
If I go to a restaurant, I allow myself to have a little bit of bread. I allow myself to have dessert occasionally. I allow myself to eat some shitty things.
Yeah.
Maybe a little pasta if I
Yeah.
feel like it. Fuck it. You have to be, I think you have to both be disciplined and also I enjoy the art form of cooking. Like I enjoy that people make these delicious dishes.
I follow your elk and jalapeno Instagram feed there, Joe. Looks great.
Do you cook at all?
I love cooking,
I
yeah.
have meat for you then.
Oh,
I have sausages.
Joe
elk
Rogan has
sausage.
meat for me,
That's
ladies
not what
and
I meant.
gentlemen.
That's not what I meant. He's one of the few
Here
people you
comes
can't
that,
really say
that
that to.
cuck beta thing again. So
Yeah,
I'll tell you a
all
great.
that cuck
We're
beta stuff.
talking about the van. This, my favorite thing in life is travel, and the reason I love travel is that you can wake up and have no idea what your life's going to be like by the time you go to bed.
Right.
Right. So we're driving the van through along the Rio Grande, and we want to go to Big Bend National Park, which is beautiful. You know where that is?
No.
It's like that part of Texas that sort of dips down.
Oh, okay.
And then, and there's like a big bend, like literally a big bend. That's the river. So it's way down South Texas.
That's a weird spot.
It's cool. It's interesting down there.
South Texas is strange.
Yeah.
You should have a passport to go there.
And the river's like as wide as this room. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nothing.
Yeah.
You could just walk across over to Mexico.
Wow.
But anyway, so we get into the western entrance of Big Bend, and it's like 4 p.m. and the guy says, "Yeah, all the campgrounds are full." And, shit, okay, can I get a backcountry permit? Like, no, you can't. You gotta. Okay, so he says, just go back to that little town right there, spend the night there, and then come in the morning, and I'll hook you up. Okay, great. So we go back to this town. It's called Terlingua, little town. We just drove through it on the way in. Nothing there, some houses, whatever, and we find this restaurant, and it's like, okay, we're just going to crash behind a dumpster in the van, and whatever, and spend the night there. So we're sitting there, and I remembered somebody had sent me an Instagram direct message like about Terlingua. So I go back and find it, and the guy's like, hey, if you get to Terlingua, Texas, you should look up my buddy Tony. He's really cool. So here's his handle. So
You can't tell people that you're willing to do this because now they're going to be sending you direct messages.
Oh, they do it all the
you-
time, man.
bringing you
I love
traps.
it. No, see, but you're paranoid.
There's going to be a dude with a ball gag in his hand, and you're going to go, what? And then you're going to feel that wet, that cloth filled with chloroform cover your nose.
You're in a different world, Joe. I'm in a world of micro podcasting where everybody who reaches out to me likes me.
Oh, everybody reaches out to you, I'm sure.
And they're not crazy.
They just want to tie you up a little.
Well, hey, what's wrong with that? I remember showing you one time, a long time ago, I was here doing a podcast, and my phone, a message came in, and I looked, and it was this really hot woman in Australia who liked to send me naked pictures of herself. And I showed it to you, and you're like, that's a trap.
It's a trap.
That's a trap.
It's a trap,
That's
bro.
what a trap looks like right there.
It is what a trap looks like.
She's in Australia.
They are different over there. They're
far away.
Yeah. They are interesting people.
Anyway,
that's a place I would live.
I like Australia. Yeah.
I would live there.
Yeah.
They get
I like
comedy,
Australian people. They're funny as fuck.
Funny as fuck.
Yeah.
But they get American comedy straight away. Like there's no like problem
Yeah.
with doing shows over there.
Yeah. humor is an interesting thing, cultural humor. Anyway, let me finish the story. So I text this dude. I'm like, hey, I'm Interlingua. You don't know me, but some friend of yours, whatever. He texts us back, hey, we're in this restaurant. Come have a beer. So we go to this restaurant. There's this table, maybe a dozen people sitting at the table. Hey, come on, yeah, have a beer. Really nice people. After about 15 minutes, I say to somebody, are you guys tripping? It's like, yeah, we ate some mushrooms. It's like, okay, some of them did, some of them didn't. Anyway, but super relaxed. And somebody makes some joke about like their beer glass was dirty or something, and someone else is like, yeah, just lick it. It's good for your microbiome. And I'm like, oh, you guys know about microbiome? Like, yeah. I said, I read this article a couple years ago. This dude probably read this dude was in Africa with the Hadza people, the hunter-gatherers, and he took some Hadza shit and he mixed it up and blasted it up his ass to see if he could get a hunter-gatherer's microbiome, because it's a much more complex microbiome, right? I say this to this dude thinking he's going to have a reaction like you just had, and he says, oh, yeah, that's him. He points to the end of the table. I said, what?
And the guy's like half alive.
No,
wires coming out.
And the guy's looking at me smiling. And I said, that's you? He's like, yeah, that's me. You blasted fucking hunter-gatherer? Yeah, I do this thing in Africa. This guy's a world-famous scientist, microbiome expert.
Wow. Spends
half his life in Africa with this hunter-gatherer group, and the other half in this tiny little town in Texas. And there he is. Wow. And so we stayed there 4 days, became great friends with this guy, did a podcast with him. Fantastic
What's his name
guy.
Again?
Jeff Leach.
Is in Tangentially Speaking, the podcast, available on iTunes, Stitcher, and everywhere else?
Available where fine podcasts are found.
Wow, yeah. I'm going to listen to that one. That sounds amazing.
I mean,
what a coincidence.
This was the trip, you know?
Yeah.
And that was totally fell out of the sky. We went to visit Peter Gorman, you know him? He was editor of High Times Magazine in the 70s. Cool. First person to write about ayahuasca in the Western press. Like, not scientifically, but popular press.
Wow.
Explored the Amazon for years, was all over down there. The first person to write about Sapo, you know, the burn.
Frog.
Yeah. Really interesting dude. He's in Texas, too.
Wow.
So he drove up to see him. So it's kind of like just cruising around in the van, like hanging out with cool people.
I heard that frog poison stuff is horrible. Like the trip.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it was Aubrey. Wasn't it Aubrey that was on the podcast talking about doing that tree frog poison? Pretty sure it was him. He's done everything.
Yeah.
He's like Mikey from that commercial about
Hey,
Mikey
Mikey
likes it for life. He won't eat it. He hates everything. He's in there. That's Aubrey. He loves everything. Takes everything. But he was saying it was just a terrible ordeal. But there was also an article that I read about certain countries where they didn't have an endogenous psychedelic or didn't have a local psychedelic. So these people would take ordeal poisons. So they would take poisons that would get them like literally to the brink of death, and then they would come out of it like a near-death experience, and that this near-death experience provided some sort of a shamanistic, some sort of a breakthrough experience where you could move on to the next level. Like you'd experience something that was like we were talking about before the podcast, like when you lived in Portland and then coming here in LA when it's sunny out, you're like, sun, you just feel it. That it's similar.
Well, there's a similar theory about Africa, that there aren't a lot of endogenous psychedelic plants there. Iboga is one of the only ones, and that's incredibly strong and not available all over the continent. And so they develop complex rhythms to provoke altered states.
That makes sense.
And that's why African rhythms are so complex and Native American rhythms are very simple.
That's interesting because they were high as fuck.
High as fuck already, and just boom, boom, boom is enough. You know?
Have you ever heard any of the Icaros that Aubrey plays? When he has his little
I haven't
illegal
heard
drug
Aubrey's,
ceremonies.
But
he's got these Icaros that he got from these South American shamans, and I listen to them sometimes when I write because I like listening to things that I don't know. The language when I write. Like I like some music from Armenia. I like some Lebanese music. It's cool listening to things where I have no idea what they're saying. So like, I don't get wrapped up in, but I feel their emotions, but I don't get wrapped up in whatever they're talking about. So I can write about whatever, fucking tabletops.
There's a lot of good music out there. You want Brazilian, African.
Yeah.
Most of the music I listen to, I don't understand the words. because I really fixate on the words if I do.
The Icaros are crazy because they make the psychedelic trip dance to them, like DMT. Like when you take DMT with the Icaros, you realize like the Icaros, it's like a technology that was invented to work with DMT.
Right.
Like this is like, give me some volume on this shit. This is what they sound like. Now, by itself, you listen to this right now and you go, oh, this is just like some weird, slow music. But when you're in the dimension of dimethyltryptamine and the world has become infinite fractals that are moving and changing and morphing, when you hear this song, the hallucinations or whatever they are that you're experiencing, the visualizations, they dance to the song, 100% in sync. So all this,
it's comforting.
yeah, but that's another thing. It keeps people from having bad trips sometimes because they can cling to the music and the structure in the music, whereas their own paranoia and fear and inability to let go gets hit with that psychedelic juice. Boom. And you just experience that new, and some people freak out, but this music might be able to bring them down.
It sounds like what a fetus might hear in the womb. Got that heartbeat too.
Yeah, right? Imagine what a fetus hears. Hey. See, I like listening to this kind of shit when I write because I have no idea what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so I can just keep it on the background. It also makes me feel like just knowing that that's out there, knowing that the DMT world is out there, it makes me just a little bit nervous. It makes me write better.
You're writing jokes or other stuff?
Everything, whatever.
You ever written a book or essay or stuff?
I've written essays. I used to write a lot.
Oh yeah, no,
for my
I've
website.
read some of your essays. What am I talking about? Yeah, you wrote a beautiful one a couple of years ago about that I don't know if I've ever told you how much I appreciated that. Actually, it was about how the quest for optimal fitness shouldn't be taken as immortality, that we're all going to die, and you got to sort of deal with that. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I wrote your body's a sandcastle.
That's what it is.
Yeah, the sandcastles are beautiful, but one of the beautiful things about them is we know how temporary they are.
Yeah.
Like when you see a sandcastle, it's not just like, oh, this guy made an amazing sculpture. It's like, oh, no, this person made something that they know is not going to last, and they put a massive amount of work into it, but part of the beauty of it is that it's not going to last.
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
I think that was for a magazine.
Yeah.
I forget what magazine.
So you have a book in mind?
I started writing a book, and then I had to deal with the publishing company, like they wanted very specific kind of writing. Oh, it's for Maxim. That's what it is. They wanted very specific, like they wanted jokey jokes. They even offered to just pay me to transcribe my act. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And they go, but these people did it, some famous comedians did it. And I said, that's fine. It's just not what I want to do. I like writing, but I like writing shit that I feel like writing. I don't want. So we went into it. We love your blog.
Was this before you had the podcast?
So I gave him on a
do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, I just think that anytime you willingly take on some new project and other, they might like their opinion might very well be valid, but I'm not looking for it. I want whatever I write to be out of my head, and whether it's good or bad, dependent upon how much focus and attention. I'm pretty self-critical, so if I think I'll try to redo it, but I'm not interested in artistically creatively going down a direction where somebody else is picking the subject matter or somebody else is suggesting. Like it's fine.
There's no
I'm just not
reason for
interested
you
in
to do
doing
it.
it.
I mean, you've got the massive platform and a well-established voice. I think, honestly, publishing is at the Napster stage right now. I think it's sort of collapsing. I'm finishing this book I've been working on for a few years now, and I don't know that I'll ever publish another book with major publishers.
Well, you've had great success with your podcast as well, but the beautiful thing about your podcast is it allows you to put out an idea almost instantaneously. I mean, you get together with this rattlesnake guy, you guys have a couple-hour conversation, you upload that shit, and that's it.
It's wonderful, and it brings really
Give me 42.5 seconds. I'm going to show you how this.
Want to master video editing skills and make gorgeous YouTube videos like Zoella, PewDiePie, or other superstars the like? Hi YouTubers, if you ever considered video making too difficult a task with steep learning curve, then you are absolutely wrong. With Wondershare Filmora, you are just one step away from being a superstar on YouTube. Filmora is an intuitive, easily mastered video editor available on Windows PC, Mac, iPhone, and Android. Easily get started by importing videos shot by any digital camera, camcorder,
time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us